Government regulations say we can make our Hebrew national beef hot dogs from frozen beef. We don't. The government says we can use artificial coloring. We don't. They say we can add meat byproducts. We don't. They say we can add non-meat fillers. We can't. We're kosher and have to answer to an even higher authority.
Bienvenidos. What the fuck is up? So we're kind of on a backlog right now. We're behind a few months. We're basically what's happening is we're transitioning the Pabloverse, and we're running on Windows 98 on Internet Explorer. So any mention of current events is going to be not so current, but we're still talking about them. So by the time we release this,
it'll probably be a few weeks at least for now.
Yeah, by the time we release this, you guys, it'll probably be 2 months after the nuclear holocaust, because that's just going on right now.
The world will end. The Jews are going to be in charge of everything.
Which is good. I'm not mad about that.
Yeah, I mean, hey, at least, it'll be financially responsible.
Yeah, I mean, somebody's got to be.
The economy will be better than it is right now. We might all be making more money. Who knows?
Yeah.
Or we'll all be dead. One of the two.
Yeah, I mean, we'll go back to bartering. I mean, so it'll actually be worth your salt. Literally worth your salt if you have salt. Yeah.
Hey, man, I can imagine, like, at the end of the world, if there's going to be anything that's important, it's most likely, like, flavor for your food, I mean, I got to imagine.
Can you imagine?
Well, dude, if it's the end of the world, like, and everything's gone, and the entire world sucks, if at the very least, if I could just have some fucking salt on my dog as I eat it, that would be great.
Basically, the internet. Okay, so like 2 weeks ago, what was 2 weeks ago? December 9th, you're on the internet and black people are making fun of white people for not seasoning their food. Post-nuclear holocaust, white people are like, yeah, well, our shit got salt, dog. Where's your salt?
Yeah, where's your salt, bro?
It'll be flexing if you have seasoning. You'll be in the barbaric, like, cannibal strip clubs.
At least it'll
throwing salt out.
It'll be kosher salt.
Of course.
Gotta keep everybody happy.
Well, this is actually, I wonder, now I gotta go to, like, a Wikipedia, figure out what's different with kosher salt. Specific, like how does salt...
Supposedly the kosher salt's actually not all that great. It's supposedly it still has a lot of the bad shit in there.
Yeah, so what's the concept of kosher salt?
Bro, salt is salt as far as I'm fucking concerned. I mean, I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
I have no idea, to be honest. I mean.
You ever taste titty sweat? It has salt in it. It's pretty kosher to me.
I mean, technically, if it didn't come from pork, I guess it is kosher. I mean, as long as you're not licking
titties.
Pork sweat or something.
Yeah.
Pig titties. I mean, I guess it's good.
Thank God I've never gotten titty sweat from a pig or anything that resembled a pig yet.
So, like, all right, man. I was talking to you about this before.
Yeah.
And I hate to bring this up first.
Yeah.
But I've literally been thinking about it for a week now.
Yeah.
Because it's literally all I've been listening to for a week now.
I want to, for the people who would want to skip forward or not skip forward or whatever, I just want to say he's going to talk about this. And then we got stuff to talk about Pabloverse. So we're so fucking excited about.
Yes.
Yeah. Like so fucking excited about it. It helps it make up for the time we've been missing. So yeah, let's get into it.
Okay. So. About a week or so ago, I think it was Joe Rogan I was listening to, and he had on Dave Smith.
Yeah.
Okay. And Dave Smith, and somewhere about halfway through the interview or whatever, he was talking about how Martyr Made Podcast has a really good, like, 6-part series on the history of Zionism from, like, the late 1800s to, like, 1948. And so I stopped halfway through the podcast, and I was like, you know what? I want to go listen to this because I was curious, like, I kind of feel especially right now, post listening to all this, I kind of feel like I did when I realized that Tower 7 did not fall by itself. That's how I feel about all this after listening to this. So it's a 6-part series, about 30 hours of podcasts on the history of Zionism from the late 1800s to 1948. Fuck. All right. So, like, I want to preface this by saying I'm going to try not to be biased here.
Yeah.
But it's not going to sound that way because it's kind of fucked up.
Well, there's a couple of problems, and let me kind of mediate for you.
I want to say that I let me preface this by saying I'm on no one's side.
I
hate. I'm an equal opportunity hater. I hate everyone equally.
Yeah.
Like no one gets over on that. So like I'm not saying that I like any one person better than the other.
Yeah.
I'm just purely want to state this from the standpoint of what I learned.
Yeah.
And how
to
it made
what
me,
you know to be true now.
What I thought to be true before.
Yes.
What I learned. What I know to be true now. And possibly how it may have changed a few ways I feel about things. But again, I don't want to be biased because it's fucked up either way. But go what you're saying, right? I'm sorry.
Yeah. So to kind of like bias or like handicap this, if we were playing golf and there's like truth handicap, that's like a hole in one or whatever. However golf works is like making a terrible analogy, but it's like you went from thinking one thing and then just post finding out there's way more complexity to this.
A lot more complexity.
That was not discussed at all before. And your entire worldview and most everybody's worldview is based on not having this information. And we're not alive from the past. We're not omnipotent. So we can only verify to the extent of like we can and measure with logic. And the other thing why it's always going to seem bad is that
this isn't this isn't the late 1800s either. So it's hard for us to even put it in context of the time because, dude, I mean, you got to remember, bro, like late 1800s, what your average age your person might live is 50, 60 years old. Most people were still dying of starvation and disease back then. Medical advances, not that far. Even social, just the way we think about things, man. Like everything was different back then. So it's hard. Like it's fucked up to view it through a modern lens, like we're about to do. But like, you also have to keep it in context that like you're viewing this whole situation through a modern lens, which is not the same as it was back then.
Right, but also. But see, here's the thing, too. All the information that you have of people who you're supposed to have a negative opinion on, or no one's defending them at least, is looking at the past with no there's no cognizant idea that, like, well, the past was slightly different, so remember that. Everybody was not tuned up to the modern standard. So, but Jews have always been held in the light that they are tuned up to the modern standard, but because it's a protected class for whatever reason, if you think it's supposed to be that way or not. So all I'm saying in preface to kind of defend you a little bit is that there's nothing you could say that no matter how, if it's critical of Jews in any sense, at any measure, like even if it was specific to like this class of Jew or this specific, whatever, this specific mindset, worldview, and a person that happens to be Jewish, anything that you could say negative will sound like amp up to 11 because it's in the recent absence of that.
Of context.
Okay. Yeah, so going from that.
Yeah. So this whole thing starts, or now, like I said, if you really want to know the whole thing it's like, again, I didn't take any notes, so I'm just kind of spewing this off of what I remember and my basic things. So like if you want names, you want dates, individual numbers, all that stuff, I highly suggest check it out. Martyr Made Podcast, episodes 1 through 6. Like I said, they're about 3.5 to 5.5 hours each. And it's about 30 hours worth of podcast. So it's a lot.
Insane.
But if you really want to get the nitty gritty on what I'm about to talk about, that's really your number one source of information, I would say, because that's possibly the best unbiased view that I've seen of the whole situation.
Yeah.
Like that's not, like I said, put through some kind of lens where it's just like, you know, whether it's like through the Arab lens or whether it's through like the UN lens or whether it's through like the EU. Well, EU wasn't even existent back then, but I'm just saying like it's all different. So, but he did a really good job though of being unbiased with it and just like saying this is what happened, and regardless of how fucked up it is, this happened. Okay.
Yeah.
So this whole thing starts in like the 1890s.
So Hitler was right, basically.
God damn it.
I know, I'm fucking with you. I'm just trying to add some humor, because it's so serious.
So,
and
no, it
matter of
really
fact.
is though. So like this whole thing starts in like the late 1800s, right?
Yeah.
So you have a lot of these Eastern European Jews, who've pretty much been without a actual homeland country for quite some time at this point. And you also have to keep in mind, like I said, just the cultural context of everything.
Yeah.
This is back when a time period where it's just like if things happened, you blame the Jews. Like your
Sure.
town, like your town had a fucking anthrax outbreak, you blame the fucking Jews.
Yeah.
Like everybody got sick, you blame the Jews. Like and so and again, like and again,
Everybody
like,
got a.
it's fucked
Everybody
up.
got a fucking. They set the bell curve in class.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
It's
I-
blame
honestly,
the Polish.
Yeah, so they were saying like you would experience like a country would have bad times economically, but then like you have this one class of people over here that they're actually doing okay because maybe
Yeah.
they made smart business decisions or whatever, but they would just be like, well, it's their fault. So you had a lot of these instances in the 1800s, late 1800s, where you would have what they would call pogroms, which is essentially where the town folk would get together and they would just go and raid all the fucking Jews in a town.
Wow.
Like you'd beat them up, you'd burn down their houses, burn down their shop, rape their wife, kill their children, and just fucking keep going about your business. And the government didn't say shit.
Wow.
So this happened a lot during the 1800s, and again, this is like things that your average Eastern European Jew was used to at this point. I mean, like it never gets easier, but they were pretty much used to it at this point. It was just like, these fucking people, they come in, they beat us up all the time, steal our shit, break our shops, rape our women. It's fucked up. We need a homeland. All right. So again, this is an important part. I'm skipping the guy's name here because my memory shit, but just saying. So fuck, man, it's so terrible not to know this guy's name. Anyway, so he starts what we know as the modern Zionist movement, as in like he's like, we need a country for our people. All right, so what he does is he goes and looks back in a historical context and he says, we come from Palestine. That's traditionally our people's homeland is Palestine. Yeah. So keep in mind, we're in the late 1800s. There's no Google. There's very little readable material unless you know someone who's been to Palestine. You probably don't even know where the fuck it is. On top of, you don't even know that there are still people who live there right now.
Right.
As you're talking about, you're like, we need a homeland. This is where we come from. Never mind the fact that it's inhabited by like literally millions of Arabs at this point. But like, that's where we should be. So this is the start of the Zionist movement. Okay. So this guy starts this group, the Zionist movement, and he starts getting the support of Jewish bankers, big families, things like the Rothschilds. Pretty much they were a really big supporter of this, and they created the Zionist movement essentially. And so what they were going to try and do, what the original idea was that we can't go and just take Palestine because there are people there. Yes. They live there. They've been there for at least a few hundred years at this point. They've settled there, and as he puts it on the podcast, he's like, man, you have to keep in mind, like, you've lived in this house for generations. Your family's lived in this house for generations. Your great grandpa planted all the olive trees that you harvest every year. He planted all the food that you harvest every year. You may not own this house at the time. A lot of the real estate in Palestine was actually owned by the Ottoman Empire. It was under control from Turkey at that point, this is like pre-World War I, post-World War I. A lot of it's controlled by Turkey.
Okay.
So you have, in a lot of instances, like a family lives in a house, right? But they don't own that house. The Turkish government owns that house. And in a lot of cases, they're like, fuck this place. It's a piece of shit. We have palaces and stuff where we're from. So they would give these plots of land to people that they wanted to impress, dignitaries, politicians, things like that. And so they would actually own the land, but never actually go there.
Right.
Because they were just like, this is a third world country or whatever. I mean, and it's hard to say that when everything's a third world country at that point. But
yeah,
the point is,
do you know, by the way, do you know where third world and first world come from?
I don't actually.
I'll just drop that in. Since it literally comes from people's position in the Cold War. So
no shit, huh?
If you are on the Allied side, the quote Allied side, America's side in the Cold War, you're first world. If you were on Russia's side, you're second world. And if you didn't have a side, because
You were
nobody gave a
third
shit,
world?
you're a third world.
No shit.
Yeah, okay.
Well, good to know. So I guess that wasn't even a thing back then. But
Yeah.
essentially, these Turkish dignitaries and politicians, higher ups, owned a lot of these plots of land in Palestine. Okay, so people would live there, but technically it was owned by Turkish dignitaries. They'd either pay like a percentage of their yield of crop or rent or whatever to live there. So the Jews set up I think it's like the Jewish something fund, Jewish monetary fund.
Okay.
Jewish, I forget what it is. Anyway, they set up this whole thing. And so the idea, what they first thought is that we can't just go and take over this country because we have no claim to the land legitimate. I mean, they do sort of in a fact of like, okay, that's where
Moral,
historically they're from. Yeah, but there was no logistical claim to the land or like current claim to the land. So they said, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start a movement where we're going to use the financial influence that we've got. We're going to start this movement and we're going to start pushing it out there to the Jews of the world that we want everyone to immigrate to Palestine. Okay? Now, obviously, like I said, they can't just take over the land. So the idea was they were going to buy up plots of land using this Jewish fund that they got from bankers and all the people that they were putting money together.
Wow.
This fund would buy the land. And then, of course, they would put the Jews to work over there and they would start building it up until eventually the idea was, and as fucked up as this sounds, is that you would immigrate to the point where now you're the majority in the country and you could just outvote the native Arabs.
Yeah.
That was the original idea. So they started this movement. They start getting people to immigrate there. Turns out at this time, aside from Eastern Europe, a lot of the other European Jews from the non-Eastern European countries weren't so hip to that because they weren't getting fucking killed and raped and their shops pillaged. It wasn't that bad.
Mm-hmm.
So immigration was a lot slower than they thought it was going to be to take over this plot of land. So it went from like, this might be a 50-year goal to like, this might be a 100-year goal. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, they kept continuing to pour into Palestine. A lot of the native Arabs were just like, hey, like, I get it. Like, you're looking for a place, like, they weren't hostile to each other at this point. A lot of the times, too, they would share in meals and celebrations, things like that. You were friends. That was your neighbors.
Sure.
Well, then it got to the point where this fund would buy up lands. They'd put Jews to work in it, and it became all of a sudden to where if this fund bought up this land and this fund owned this land, or if it gave it to a Jew to work this land, then that land could only be worked on by Jews. So there were no Arabs. So
And
even
who made
though,
that law?
this is the Jewish National Fund, I think it is.
Okay, the fund was already saying this. Okay.
Yeah. So this is what the fund set up the rules. So they said if we own a piece of land, only Jews can work it.
Okay, wow.
But again, like I said, so you have these Arabs who like farming is all they know. Like
you're disenfranchising because you're taking their land and then
so
their job.
So now you have a country of unemployed Arabs. A lot of them are unemployed because again they can't work. So now they're having, and then of course once the fund buys it up, they say not only can Arabs not work this land, Arabs can't live on this land.
Right.
Only Jews.
You're pushing them into a corner.
So now you started getting these outside major cities. They would start having like these camps and everything, or these shanty towns essentially, where Arabs were making homes that couldn't afford to move to other countries or other cities where they could actually own or work land or live there. Okay, so this whole thing goes on for quite a while.
So we started in the 1800s.
Yeah.
With this. So now we're rolling in to 1900s.
So all right. So
the
now,
turn of the century.
Now again, like if my memory shit, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead and look up the Martyr Made podcast if you really want 100% specific dates. So at some point in this, I think it's during World War I or post World War I.
Okay.
Britain gains control of Palestine. It was like the Turkish Empire at that point. I think like they just it becomes under the control of Britain at this point. After I think post World War I. Okay. So obviously, like the Jews are a little bit more friendly with the British than they are the Turks. But also at this point, things have gotten a little sour because now you're talking 20 years of immigration of Jews and 20 years of putting these Arabs out of work and kicking them out of their homelands. Okay.
Right.
So then you start to have some of these Arabs are getting a little bit smarter about especially during the British occupation. So a lot of what they would do is the British would limit travel within a country, right? So if you were a citizen of that country, Palestine, you still couldn't travel to these other parts of Palestine unless you had permission from the British government.
Wow.
Unless you were like an imam or a religious leader, then because you had to officiate religious ceremonies, weddings, funerals, and stuff, you had permission to travel throughout the country.
Okay.
So this is where a lot of these imams start gathering this real power, because they're one of the few people that are actually able to talk to all these portions of the country.
You know what's crazy? Just to like make a parallel here, because like there's always one path, like to a thing. The same path, you can see that the same path the imam's going through because of borders and shit and regulations is the same path that the Rothschilds went when they had to make the banking system and use their brothers to basically it's like very interesting cornering,
Well, so at some point throughout all this, right? The Jewish people, and again, this is post World War I. There's after all this like fighting over lands and stuff, there gets to be this like essentially this treaty, which says that the British are committed to helping the Zionists resettle in Palestine, but not to give them the country, essentially. So if anything, at the most they were willing to do was possibly at some point later on down the road, they tried to split up the country to where it was ruled by both Palestinians and the Jews, where it would be kind of like a co-governed state, essentially. That was about the most they were willing to do, the British were. Well, obviously the Zionists had other ideas. Their idea was Palestine is ours from a historical context, and it should be a Jewish state.
Yeah.
Only a Jewish state. That was the idea of the Zionists from the start, but they also realized that from the start that you can't just take a country that's already occupied by people.
Once they realized they couldn't outvote.
Exactly. But they also couldn't let the Arabs know that this was their end goal, because if they were going to know that, then, dude, it would all, the fucking gig would be up.
Yeah, from the get-go.
Dude, we're talking 50 years of playing this fucking game. We're not actually trying to take your country. We just want a place to live. Okay. This goes on for a long time. Okay. To eventually, this is somewhere like in the late 30s now, during World War II. Or let's back this up. In the beginning of the 30s, once Hitler starts his anti-Jewish rhetoric. Okay. So now at some point, this is before the Holocaust and everything, Hitler is volunteering. He says, all the Jews want to leave here, but yet all of you allied countries aren't volunteering to take any of them in. So if you really care that much, why won't you take them? I'll even pay for transportation. No one takes them in any of the surrounding countries. So the Zionist movement's gaining some major power in here because, again, you're starting to get Jews who are experiencing hatred from their local populations. And here you got the Zionist movement saying, hey, you can just come here to Palestine.
Right.
Well, then the Arabs get pissed. Very fucking pissed. Because they're starting to see the writing on the wall here.
Yeah.
Well, they start rioting. Jews are getting killed. Like, these are bad things. Like I said, there are constant fights. And the British actually have a decent working relationship with the Arabs at this point. They're kind of on the Arab side. Wow. Especially the soldier class.
How so?
Well, the people who were actually there on the ground, the British police who were maintaining the peace on the ground, like, this is the Arabs' country. They've been here for several hundred years. And here we are, like we're volunteering to help, or like we're trying to help the Jews resettle here and at least have a home. But like the Jews and the Arabs have a different idea of what home is. The Jews think this is our state. And the Jews are also looking at the British army like, we're going to use you to help us get what we want, because we don't have the force to do this, but you do.
Wasn't there like a document in I know there was in World War II, but wasn't there a document in World War I that was basically the British owed them something, owed them land or owed them something, and then that fell through, I believe?
So what it is what I think what you're referring to is the treaty, which I was speaking of earlier.
Okay.
And so essentially, the Jews took it as one way, and the British meant it a completely. The British in that treaty said, we're committed to helping you resettle, but not give you a Jewish state. And the Jews at that point were like, yeah, that's great, but our end goal is a Jewish state. We just can't say it.
Right.
So it's kind of, they kind of, and you can see here, like they really fucking abuse this. And again, like, dude, I hate,
British are like completely fucked because like
the
they're
British,
dragged into
dude, the
shit.
British get fucked in this situation real hard, bro. Like, as I'm about to go in, like, especially during the later portions of this. So you're having all these fights between the native Arabs and the Jews that are living there. And eventually it gets to the point where it's looking like the Jews are on the side of the Arabs. I mean, not the Jews. The British are more on the side of the Arabs than they are on the Jews. Okay, and so the Jews are getting pretty upset about this. And so, like they're going back and forth. So eventually the Jews start, it's like the Haganah, which is essentially, it's the Jewish militia, essentially, is what it is. All right. Now, they really become important later on down the road because a lot of the initial purpose of it seems like, is to just defend the Jews during these parts where the Arabs are rioting and they're attacking Jews. And so a lot of the times that Jewish militia is just there to protect the Jews because like that was the whole purpose of it.
Right.
But it morphs into something different later on as this whole fucking thing keeps going on. So, like I said, World War II, it comes and goes. Eventually, the British say, "You know what?
I've never heard that sentence, by the way."
So
World War II, it comes and goes.
It's starting. But the major thing is that as things are getting worse, the Jews are trying to continuously import more Jewish people from these countries, and again, they're leaving in records because World War II is going on. Well, then eventually, Britain says, "Okay, the Arabs are complaining a lot. There's no peace in this motherfucker because they know what's going on.
Yeah,
we're going to limit your immigration to, I think it was like 75,000 total. It was like 15,000 a year. Again, my numbers could be wrong. It was something like 15,000 a year for like 3 years and then 75,000 total. And of course the Jews were like, that's not going to work.
Of course not. Yeah.
Of course not. Because again, that was not part of the plan. So of course they get really fucking pissed at the British. Like really fucking pissed. Okay. And this is before the 1948 like vote on borders and everything like that. All right. So, of course, like I said, they're still fighting with the Arabs at this point, and they're pissed off at the Brits because the Brits are trying to fuck them via immigration. Now, this is where that militia group really gets interesting. Before I go into this, because this is where the real fucked up shit starts, I need another beer. So give me 1 second.
Hell yeah.
Give me 1 second.
We're back.
So, all right. So the British are starting to limit immigration to Palestine. It's really pissing off the Jews. They have several votes and stuff. And again, I'm skipping a whole lot of shit here. It's just an abbreviated history of 70 years. So eventually they're starting to do that. And now the Jews are the Haganah. They start to get this idea that essentially, like, look, if the British aren't going to be on our side and they're going to try and fuck us over like that, then the British are our enemies. Okay? Now, here's where it really gets interesting. So, generally speaking, you know, when you hear things like terrorist attacks, suicide bombers, you know, bombs, things like that, the Jews aren't exactly what you would think of first.
Yeah.
But come to find out, that is exactly who the fuck made a lot of this shit. So, you have things like, kidnapping of British officers, executions, hangings.
Is there a specific kidnapping of the British
there was a
officer?
lot of kidnappings of British officers and executions.
Okay.
At one time, there was even the British government started looking at the Jewish militia as common criminals. Okay, so they weren't even giving the pretty much their idea was, we're not even going to give them the satisfaction of they're a political organization. They are common criminals. So what they did was, at one point, and this is just one example, was they decided, we're going to, when we capture, it was like after a bombing or a killing or something, they were like, we're going to treat them like a common criminal. So they caught the guy and they said, we're going to punish them to 18 lashes in public.
Wow.
So they did that. And then the Jews promptly kidnapped like 10 British officers and also gave them 18 lashes and left them dead or barely alive in a lot of public places. The dead ones, like one of them, and again, this may have been, I might be conflating two different things, but like they hung one British officer, and when they went to go get him and they cut him down, his body was booby trapped, and so it killed everybody.
Holy shit.
Yeah, they were doing shit like that.
Bro.
Okay. Like
how
they would go into
explosives?
Arab, dude, they would go into Arab neighborhoods, like literally blow up houses, shoot shoot up whole fucking places. And like I was telling you earlier, you know, I mean, like things just got really fucking bad. Okay. So eventually, this is post World War II now. And essentially Britain is looking to completely wipe their fucking hands of this place. They're tired as fuck of dealing with this shit sandwich of they can't make the Jews happy no matter what they fucking offer them. They're having to deal with all these terrorist attacks and shit, and it's just tit for tat, every fucking thing. So eventually, this is when they push all this off to the UN in 1948. Now, keep in mind, you still have terrorist attacks going on this whole time. Okay, in 1948, there was...
When did the UN come around?
This is like 2 years, like literally right as World War II ended, 1946.
Holy shit!
So like UN's only like 2 years old when
Wow.
they take on this idea of splitting up Palestine into different countries, right? This is like literally the UN's
Your
first major
project.
thing.
Damn.
So
Hey,
essentially,
here's a holy war that's going on forever. Just figure
well,
that
dude,
out.
and it's a fucking shit sandwich, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, so Britain's looking to wipe their fucking hands of this place. So like, fuck these people. We hate everything about this place. We're just done. Okay. They're done with colonialism at this point. Like they're about to lose India at this point. They're about to lose Palestine. It's a shit sandwich. So, and again, at this point in time, dude, you still have terrorist attacks going on this whole fucking time. Even during the votes of what to split up this country, you still have terrorist attacks going on. Even after the vote to split it into into two countries, you still have terrorist attacks going on. Okay? Put it this way. In 1948, there was 1 week in which they said 700 and something Jews were killed, 1,000 Arabs were killed, and 130 something British soldiers were killed, all in terrorist attacks.
Bro, I can't even fathom what the fuck the British are thinking. It's such a shit.
So now keep in mind, okay, so after they decide to split up the country, okay, the Jews are like, this is the best deal we're going to fucking get. Like, they've already turned down one partition before all this, and they were like, it's all or nothing, and they got fucked. And they were like, turns out the rest of the world didn't feel the same way about them.
Damn.
So they decide they're gonna vote on the UN.
It's a bitch when that happens.
Yeah, right. So the UN's gonna vote on whether or not they're going to split Palestine into two different countries. Okay. Turns out the entire world said no. I think they needed 16 votes to cancel it out. Okay, and they were going to have more than 16 votes to cancel out the resolution saying that the Jews were going to get their own state and Palestine would get their own state. Okay? That's originally how it was supposed to be. So the creation of Israel in 1948 for the first vote was not going to win.
Yeah.
Then the Jews start to exude some influence. Okay, especially over the United States government at this time. Okay? And they're like, you don't have the influence that you say you have because all these countries are about to fuck us. What the hell? Right? There's a lot of money in America, a lot of Jewish money in America. There's a lot of small countries. So, like, here's one example, and this is one I got from the podcast, just to throw it out there. Liberia, right, was going to vote no in the UN resolution to give the Jews their own country, right? So, the Jews go to the American government, and they're like, yo, this is fucked up. They also go to Firestone, the tire company. Okay. You want to guess which country made, at that point, most of the rubber that went into Firestone tires?
Give me a second. I'll take a guess on that.
Wait. I'll give you one guess.
There's this very specific place that makes all the fucking rubber, but why am I having trouble? Is it Malaysia or something?
Liberia?
Oh, it's Liberia. Fuck.
Oh, yeah. You know,
my bad.
yeah.
Jeez.
So, yeah,
That was an
right.
underhand
So,
pitch.
so they go to Firestone, and they're like, yo, half your rubber comes from Liberia. And they're like, yeah, Liberia is about to vote to screw us out of our home country. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, sure you want to do that? There's a lot of money invested in your company. So Firestone goes to the head of Liberian government, and they say, hey, if you vote against the UN resolution to create Israel, we're going to take our fucking rubber manufacturing plants out of your country. So which one do you like more, employment or a hard stance against the Jews? Turns out they like employment a lot more. They changed their vote. They did this to a lot of countries.
OG ESG.
Then all of a sudden, now you went from having enough votes to cancel it out to there was two more votes for them to have their country
Wow.
than they needed.
Wow.
So check this out. So now they said, okay, the lines are drawn. They have till this date to get the fuck out or make things happen. You have to stay there, get out, whatever. This is when the terrorist activities really started kicking up. This is when you had that 700 something Jews killed, 1,000 Arabs, 130 something British.
Yeah.
So the idea is that the Jews got 56% of Palestine. Okay. The fucked up part is that a lot of these portions that the Jews got were also heavily occupied or inhabited by Arabs. Mm-hmm. And it was not the other way around. So the portions that the Arabs got were not heavily occupied by Jews. There were far less Jews in the Arab parts than there were Arabs in the Jewish parts.
Wouldn't that be true? Just because there's
just
less?
Because there's but it was just the area. But it was just the areas were very saturated with population. So this is when you have the Jewish militias are now starting to say, well, we still want full control of this, so we're going to make it hard for them to live here. And that's when the real terrorist attacks started fucking popping up. That's when you had these fucking deadly weeks and months of just terrorist attacks. Is when you have, like, literally, dude, I mean, like, armies of Arabs, armies of Jews going into neighborhoods and killing each other and shit, just trying to fucking fight back and get each other to move out. Like, it's a really...
The fact that this was supposed to be a solution for something, a fraction of that.
So my whole thing is on this is that this is very different than what we were taught in high school and in middle school and just in history in general.
Yeah.
We didn't learn about any of this shit.
Yeah.
It was all just the Holocaust, the Jews needed a place to go, and we gave them a place to be, and it sucked for the Arabs. There's a lot of parts missing from that. And that's probably more so than we learned in fucking school. And so, again, I'm trying not to put a bias here.
Yeah.
But this is a really fucked up situation. And I'm not saying, because again, everyone who did this is dead now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really hard to say you're on this side
now that
or
Henry
that side
Kissinger died.
Because technically everyone is innocent at this point.
They've
all inherited
just
problems.
died, so now it's finally like he was the last one that was probably...
I mean, and again, dude, like, look, if I was a Palestinian and you were asking me what my opinion is on this matter, it would probably be a lot different than American me, right? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I and again, like, I still sympathize, and I sympathize with both sides, because I think both sides have an argument,
mm-hmm.
and both sides have done fucked up things then and now.
You sure?
And I think it's all wrong. And I think it's really difficult to say you're on one side or another and really defend that position. Because
if you don't have a personal vested interest in the outcome, it's hard to pick a side.
Well,
because
and even when you have an invested interest in it, I mean, dude, again, like, I'm gonna bring this back to fucking Building 7, man. Like, how many years did we talk about these things? And I always had the position of, it was just like, man, this was fucked up. The terrorists attacked us. Like, we had nothing to do with this, and we're over there and we're making it right. And it came to be at some point, I was like, dude, I don't know if that's the case.
Dude, do you realize, like, how major your shifts? Like, okay. Like, they're major.
I'll have you know, by the way, 9/11 this morning, a.m., I saw the clock and I thought about your fucking meeting again. By the way, it hit me again this morning.
Psychic attacks, temporal psychic attacks.
Dude, fucking for real, bro.
No, like, for one thing, I think everybody has come to a realization that things aren't what they seem to be.
Things are way more complicated.
Yeah, way more complicated. Aren't what they seem to be, especially like when you're given like a nice, like, boom, this is what it is, this is how it is. And then
honestly, dude, I think if people don't even know the extent of the complication, we should at least preface all this by saying it is way more complicated.
Oh yeah,
than just your average person assumes. Even if you don't know the whole story, like, even in an official capacity, our people in charge who talk about this should preface everything by saying, like, no one really fucking knows what they're talking about.
Dude, you like the shit fucking, they just had a presidential debate and I heard like little snippets of it. but it was like Vivek going against Nikki Haley, and it was just like she was, and then who else? But I was specifically about Ukraine, and he was like, "Oh, you don't even know what fucking districts like you want to protect, or what districts you're protecting." And I don't know. It's the same fucking shit here because. But to go back to the shift, like it's about you, but it's also about everybody. Where it's like this idea that you're locked into a worldview, and the ability to let go of it, and then recalibrate. It's fucking near impossible.
It's a dawn of new knowledge, man. Everything is different. Yeah. Everything's different.
Yeah.
Nothing is as we were taught it was supposed to be.
But it never was.
Yeah,
it never was.
I think there's just a collective awakening of people just coming aware to like what the fucking truth of reality is and the nature of reality. Because everything is just so much different than what we were taught, man. And especially, you know, when you have some like sense of what nationalism is, or you have some pride, you know, it's really hard to disconnect like the things that you thought were or you wanted to be true, right?
Yeah.
Because like no one wants to admit like, hey, you were on a bad side. Like no one wants to admit this, right?
Of course.
But like at some point you do have to understand, like, dude, like America's done fucked up things.
Sure.
Like whether we admit it or not, man, like, dude, we slaughtered the fucking native populations. We did it a lot. We did really fucked up things to native populations. We ignored other countries.
There's two sides to it. So it's like the reason why I don't like I don't have an opinion or a vested interest in the conflict, the Middle East conflict, because there's nothing to gain for me, my people, or whatever.
Right.
Like, and even if there was, we wouldn't do it. Like,
it's a problem far, far away, and something that's way out of sight and out of mind. You don't really think about it.
Well, but there's no vested. Like, if there's a tiebreaker, there's nothing for me to choose a side. I have no vested interest, no benefit in it, and you could go, well, that's not logical. But the thing is that people are making moral arguments about things that are already leaning to their personal or national or ethnic or religious, identities. So it's like, for them, cool, fight it the fuck out, but stop trying to drag us into it. Like, in a way, that's how I feel. Because like, that's how I feel about the Native Americans, because it's like they were fighting each other over much smaller,
of course,
over much smaller shit. So I get the whole might is right thing, but when we can avoid that, cool. But this is like one of those times where it's like, we're not going to avoid the fucking might is right here, because no one's going to be like,
no one's right, man. Everyone's fucking wrong at some extent or another.
Of course, everybody's by happenstance. I mean, you can't change geography.
No.
Until you plug people's fucking heads into a computer.
Unless you're the UN, then you can change geography.
Yeah.
It just, not everybody has to fucking like it, though, either,
That's true.
I mean, like I said, I find it fucked up that, like I said, that we weren't taught about, like, and you hear the perspective, and again, like, everything is kind of fucking biased to an extent, because, like, you can't, like, as I'm over here trash talking, what the Jews did to get their own home country, like, I also can't ignore the fact that, like, hey, bro, like, the Palestinians and Arabs in general lie about shit all the fucking time to make things look worse for them.
Look at the American Revolution.
Yeah.
We didn't fight fair. It was guerrilla warfare. That shit was wild.
And hey, nothing, I mean, look, man, in war, nothing's fucking fair.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like you can try to be as fair as you want or as equal, but, like, it's not fair.
Yeah.
I mean,
see, like the French, good example is like the French kind of did it right when the American Revolution happened. I mean, I imagine that they waited to see it size up, and they went, boy, like they could fucking win, and we got something to gain if we were a part of it. You know what I mean? And it's like,
bro, did you know that the English weren't on the North side during the Civil War? Did you know that? This wasn't something we were taught. Yeah, did you know that England was actually sided with the South during the Civil War?
And why was that? Like, what
because
was their
the North
interest?
had nothing to offer them. The North only had manufacturing. The English wanted the raw materials that came from the South to make clothes and to make food and things like that. And so as far as they were concerned, there was nothing to gain from allying with the North. So again, dude, the British were allied with the South during the Civil War. Again, did you know this? I didn't fucking know it until I learned about it just recently.
Well, it's another
these
Abraham
are things we
Lincoln.
weren't taught.
Abraham Lincoln wanting to get
he did not want it, dude. everybody thinks of Abraham Lincoln as like, oh yeah, he wanted to free the slaves, but like he
Only
also
because
wanted
he
to
had
send he also wanted to send them back to Africa
Yeah.
too. And it's fucked up, but it's
He
these
wanted
are
to
things
free
we
them
weren't
just
taught.
because he had to as a strategy to undermine
Right.
the economic
it
fucking
was-
structure. So then once he freed them, he was like, okay, can we get rid of them now?
Well, I think what it came to is like when he freed the slaves, I think what it came down to is he started realizing it was just like, man, there's a lot more contention and like hatred here. Like, and I think, well, and again, rightfully so, man, especially back then, it was like, is this going to fucking work? You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, like, dude, like you just fought a war over this. Like these people have been enslaved for a couple hundred years at this point. Like, are we going to be able to coexist? And I think like
we're
I said,
still trying to answer that question.
Yeah, right. I mean,
You know
fuck,
what I mean?
dude. Like today is still. I mean, things are better, but like, is
Wait
it
till
great?
next year,
No.
election year.
Yeah, right. So I mean, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, things are so much more fucking complicated than we were taught, or that we thought they were. And there's just so much more context that like we're not taught because it really makes us look bad.
Yes.
But it's the fucking truth, man.
Well, look at like these fucking. Oh, they're bombing schools. They're bombing hospitals. Well, it's like, well, your general shouldn't meet in schools and shouldn't meet in hospitals,
Right.
But your generals meet in hospitals and they meet in schools and they have armories in hospitals and schools. So
you dropping the bomb
when
should
you
know
drop-
this and take account of it. You know, at least they're trying to figure something else.
Well, what the thing is they hide in those fucking things because they know it's going to look bad if you bomb it. So if they have to lose some of the people, it might as well be that you lose some moral high ground if the world sees it. So, but you do the same thing.
Yes.
Like, so it's like, it's this fucking boy. It's just like the entire conflicts are most of it. A lot of it's structured through narrative, at least now. Probably before democracy, that probably wasn't so true because you had ethnic ties and you had a king who had the same blood as you supposedly.
Well, and that was another major thing. Like he was talking about was that like you have to remember, especially back then, like dude, a lot of these people had no sense of national identity, especially like the Jews at that point, because like they didn't have a country, they didn't have a common shared heritage because a lot of them were all just thrown about in various different countries and whatnot. And so like, dude. Even Hebrew, the language and the writing and everything, dude, that was actually done during the Zionist movement. Believe it or not, like Hebrew was kind of a dead language at that point.
No shit.
Yeah, believe it or not, a lot of the language and the writing and stuff was actually pieced together during the Zionist movement because they said that having a shared national language and a national like way of writing, like a language, a writing, a culture would help bond them together to create a national identity, essentially. And so that's why they revived Hebrew.
And that's why they don't.
And that's why because again.
And that's why they don't teach Russian
because again, dude,
allow Russian in Ukraine anymore.
Exactly. Well, because again, dude, most of your Jews were all in Eastern Europe. They were part of whatever country that they were living in. So they didn't have a national language. That wasn't until the Zionist movement when they started immigrating to Palestine when they actually brought back Hebrew.
Yeah.
And now that's actually the national language of Israel and everything, but that wasn't even a thing until they started that.
That's crazy.
Again,
that's crazy.
But these are things that they thought of during that to create a national identity to bond.
In 2100, we'll be talking about how the black Israelites
dude. Well, because again, man, like I said, dude, all
made Chicago their homeland.
It's the fucking truth, though, dude. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's fucking truth, though. I mean, but dude, it's crazy shit how all that works. Like I said, they kind of engineered this whole situation.
Yeah,
and my whole qualm with this, especially after learning about it, is just that it was done underhanded. I think that's very shady and fucked up. Because again, it's the equivalent of if Mexico decided they were going to overtake us by immigrating here until eventually they overpopulate, kind of like what they're doing right now. But essentially, it'd be the same equivalent of like the Mexicans taking over New Mexico, and they're like, "This is Mexico now because we own it."
Except who owns the NGOs that are bringing?
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, that was the thing that the Arabs were fighting a lot too, because they were like, just because you own something doesn't mean you can establish your own country in our country, and that was their big fight against that whole thing. That's when they started telling the Jews that like you can't just only hire Jews, you have to hire Arabs too. You can't just tell Arabs they can't live here anymore. You can't discriminate against people. And that's when they were like, well, this is our fucking home state. And that's when they really started kicking it up against the British, because they were like, you're not on our side.
Yeah.
It's just, there's so much missing context from what we were taught that it really enlightens the situation and brings it under a whole new perspective. To where, like I said, and again, I'm not condoning any side.
Yeah.
Because again, everyone who did this is dead. Everyone's inherited this problem.
It's super interesting to watch, like I'm hitting on a point again, to watch your transformation through 9/11 and then this subject as well, because they are so whatever.
Dude, I've always been on this. I've always been a pro-Israel, dude. And I'm not saying that I'm not. But I'm just saying it's under a lot more context now. And here's how I view it now. Okay? And this is a big thing.
My point is
that look, I don't have to, or I support your right to be, and I support your right to exist and peacefully. But when you start doing things that you blame other people for doing, I don't have to like it. And I don't have to support it. Right, and I also have the ability to call it out when I see fucking things happening that I believe are unfair and fucked up.
Isn't it funny? It's like, not that long ago, I mean, in the span of things, not that long ago, there was kings and shit, without even parliaments. And like, you would never be able to criticize another country that has a king and has like an ethnic identity and a religion that prioritizes their ethnicity, and then be like, and then them go like, hey, that's very like anti-German or whatever. Well, and so the funny thing is like, they have a privilege to be able to do that now. Well, and then it's so asymmetric,
right?
Because you can't criticize them, yet if anybody else wanted to do that, it would be tantamount to Hitler.
And it's fucked up because and this was a big contention with the Arabs, was that like when they started realizing that the British were not keeping their end of the bargain, like they started doing attacks and riots and protests too.
Yeah.
And the British went hard on the Arabs. Like they crushed that rebellion hard.
Yeah.
And so what the fucked up part was that in 1948 and when they started really ramping up the attacks against the British, the Jews, the Arabs were like, dude, you guys, if that was us doing this, you would have fucking murdered this whole entire country. Like, you came hard on us for protesting and rioting, and these people are legit capturing and kidnapping your people and executing them and bombing things in terrorist attacks, and you aren't doing the same response that you had with us.
It makes you wonder how the blackmail machine was working back then.
Oh, well, and on top of that, dude, keep in mind, too, a lot of the people who were in charge of the policy and the decision-making in Palestine, in Britain, were all pro-Zionist. So imagine how you feel as an Arab, and you're trying to fight your case, and all the people you're explaining your case to are all fucking Zionist Jews. So again, I'm not... Look, if it was me, I'd put the influence where I had the most effect, right? So if I was a Jew in that time trying to get what I want, that's who I would try. But again, think of it in the position of the Arabs. You're like, dude, this is my fucking home. I'm trying to fight my claim for my home, and I'm having to fight the claim for my home against the people who want to take my home.
Yeah, it's like kangaroo court bullshit on a global level, and you're just sitting there.
And again, dude, and I cannot emphasize this enough, I'm not on any side here, but I'm just throwing out the facts of everything is fucked up, and it was missing context this entire time.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying that everyone should be anti, because that's not how it is. Yeah. What I'm saying is that when we view this situation currently, we should view it through the context of what's happened leading up to this, and try to at least not sympathize, but at least understand the viewpoints of each side.
Right.
And obviously things are much different now than they were then, but it's still the same idea that like things aren't what they seem. It's a lot more involved. And that's what I've picked up over the last week or so about that, and it just completely changed the way that I'm viewing this.
I wonder like what the difference is like, because I think just the few years we have separated, like in age, is like when I think I just missed the stamp, like on the cookie cutter machine, like to be formatted at a certain time.
Because you were a few years after me, I think.
Yeah. So, like, and I think a big thing was I'm in third grade, 9/11 happens, and right after 9/11 happens, there's a website called Black Sheep that the guy giving my parents like VHSs or DVDs at Blockbuster is like, yeah, they got a video of the Pentagon getting hit by a missile, and I'm just like, well, okay. We get home, I pull up the fucking Windows 98 and watch this video, and I already go like, from that moment, literally
that is
2
the
weeks.
Shadiest piece of video footage I've seen from 9/11. That honestly, it's hard to tell. Like, they say it's an airplane, and it's only one grainy video shot,
and there's
from
a frame missing.
Yeah, it's shot from a security camera from a gate right outside the Pentagon.
But there's 2 angles, and they run on closed circuit, and they run at
he said
30 frames a second.
It was missing a few frames
so
or whatever.
The irony here is that it's missing 1 or 2 frames from one angle, and then on the other angle
where whatever projectile might be visible.
Yeah, yes. But it misses a couple, and then there's something eclipsing it, like a block eclipsing it, and there's a camera on the other side of the block, so there's a camera angle there too. And then that one's also missing a frame or 2, but offset from the other one. So when you would have seen whatever was being blocked by the block is also missing that.
Right.
So it's just
and again, like dude, look, I'm not gonna 100% be like that was a cruise missile that hit the Pentagon, because it could have been an airplane. What if I know? I mean, but I'm just saying it's mighty.
You know what I find funny about lies now is that the evidence that something's not a lie is proof that it is a lie. So what I mean by that is like that. Well, that's how my spidey senses work. So like, there's no black boxes on any of the planes of 9/11, but the one black box we do have is something that probably wasn't a plane. The one black box we do have is from the one that hit the Pentagon. That's how you know the black box is a fucking lie, because there wasn't any black boxes on any other ones, even the one that landed in Pennsylvania. So that's how like you can do this photo negative logic.
I remember actually, and I hate to say this because like it makes I feel so terrible. Like, I feel dirty saying I even like watched it, but like I think I watched it might have been Loose Change, or it was like one of these other ones. And they were breaking down the black box data from the Pentagon one, and they were talking about like if this data is correct, which it theoretically should be.
I know where you're going. This is the one I sent you. It's 8 hours long.
I think it was. And it
9/11 America's New Pearl Harbor or something.
Yeah. And it breaks down pretty much the data with like a 3D graphic of, it's like, if this is the data, this is what the airplane would have to have done in order to
hit the light
to do.
poles.
Yeah. So they were like, and I'm not gonna lie, like it would,
and at that atmospheric pressure, it was going 500 knots or something, which is over twice as much as it can do at that atmospheric pressure without whipping the wings off, according to Boeing.
The air's really thick here, down closer to the surface.
Of course, yes.
I mean, like, and again, I'm not a pilot. I'm just an amateur aviation enthusiast.
And supposedly it was Boeing that said that was a problem. So.
I mean, so again, like I said, I'm not a pilot. I'm just an aviation enthusiast. I like airplanes.
Yeah.
I like Flight Simulator. I like to play on it a whole lot. What they said, and again, this is judging by the experience of the pilot.
Yeah.
From what they were saying, like this guy had like 2 flight lessons or some shit.
Yeah.
So I don't know if whoever's out there, if you've ever played on Flight Simulator or anything similar to it,
and you may or may not have.
Yeah, right. So you may or may not have done some stupid shit on Flight Simulator.
Dude, I saw a meme, and they're like, it was like
Flight Simulator 98 when the Twin Towers were still on there, because I've done some things just to see. But like,
no, it was a clip. It was a clip, and it was like, dude, I was actually looking for a retro New York shirts with the Twin Tower skylines, like legit ones. I was like, bro, that'd be kind of fucking sick to own. Like to have a souvenir before the world went to shit.
Right.
And but anyway,
such good time.
So I saw a clip, and it was like, it might have been like audio from Metal Gear Solid. They're like, we have to finish what we started. And then and it's like,
fuck?
and then, it says, we got to finish what we started. And it's like, bah, 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 and it's Flight Simulator, and the camera turns, and he's going into the Tower 1.
Oh, God.
like it's not over until you take Tower 1 out.
Dude, like, it's fucked up, man. But it's what I'm saying though is that, like, if you've ever fucked around on Flight Simulator, you'll start to realize that those big airplanes, especially at lower to the ground altitudes, are fairly difficult to fucking control. Now, obviously at that speed, it may be a little bit easier, but at like low speeds, generally, like, dude, those things are so goddamn heavy, man. I mean, you have to remember, like, for that air thickness, for the weight of that airplane, and just the amount of lift it's able to generate, like, yeah, you would have to be going a higher speed at that low of an altitude in order to even have that airplane be stable and not stalling out at that point. And especially being a big fucking airplane like that, like, it just seems highly unlikely that you would be able to get that thing that low and stable for just that, even if it's only, a fucking quarter mile. Dude, that's a fucking big airplane, dude.
And then, but you're also demanding to do crazy shit,
and at that
quarter
speed,
mile,
and at that speed,
and with obstacles in the way,
right? And that's and again, like, I'm not saying it's impossible, because
maybe a drone could do it.
I mean, look, dude, fucking. I mean, Dale Earnhardt was one of the greatest NASCAR drivers of all time, dude. And it just seemed like a simple accident fucking killed him.
He hit the wall harder than fucking.
So look, dude, like,
Chelsea
you might hit
Handler.
that 1% where that amateur pilot might have been able to do what the black box said he did. It's possible. I'm not saying it isn't. Just kind of like, it's possible that the wings wouldn't rip off, like Boeing said that they might. But it's with context. And with some little bit of info, it's enough to question whether or not that actually was the truth.
Yeah, well, you already know that the story isn't what the story you've been told, so it's the same thing, the same common thread between the other thing we were talking about. It's like not the whole truth. There's
also,
something fucking wrong.
The lack of wreckage from the one that crashed. Was it Philadelphia or Pennsylvania?
That's so fucking weird.
That one, and again, dude,
and the eyewitness.
And I'm not saying it's impossible. Because here's the thing, man. Like, you have people that legitimately, family members died that day. They're missing family, supposedly, that were on that airplane. Yeah. So if you
could make phone calls, by the way. They were making phone. That's where it gets fucking weird.
So again, dude. So if you put it through the context of, okay, these were people that existed for real. Like, these were real people. Yes. They had real families. They talked to real families. What happened to those people if that wasn't an actual crash?
Well, you know what I think? I don't know if I want to stay on a subject, because we could dedicate like a whole episode to this, but I think we should.
Because here's the...
But my thing is...
Wait, before you go any further to this, I also want to preface this by saying the CIA
trustworthy
had, in fact, not recently, but like, they had suggested to Kennedy at one point, we can shoot down an American airliner and blame it on Cuba.
What was that?
So
I'm
just saying, if they killed Kennedy over this kind of shit,
Operation Northwoods.
Yeah. So if they were willing to do that to start a war with Cuba, what were they capable of doing in a post-Kennedy era?
Look at these clouds.
Whoa, them bitches are moving, huh?
Yo.
Damn.
Tough. I've never seen clouds do this.
Fucking awesome looking.
That's like a dream. Somebody hit the fucking... This is like The Sims where they're skipping the night.
Yeah, right. Wish we could show everybody this.
Yeah, that's wild.
But
we'd have fucking jets triangulating on a location.
Yeah, right. Like, we start talking about 9/11, all of a sudden the clouds are moving fast and shit.
So, yeah, but the thing too with Operation Northwoods is that you can understand how this shit really works, because the contingencies were in contingencies.
Right.
So it was basically like, okay, let's get some people that are close to Castro to do mass shootings. Plan 1. Other version of the plan. Let's fly a plane over Cuba with CIA agents and print it as like they're college students, but we're really going to fly a drone over Cuba and shoot it down. No. Okay, well, we have the Discovery, making launch with NASA. How about we shoot that down? No. Okay, well, how about if they blow up, like go full Challenger mode, then we blame it on Cuba? Maybe. So it's like, that's the thing where it's like there's always a contingency. With a contingency, there could be truth within a lie, and then they use opportunity. But you need to understand, too, is even if they're opportunistic and use something as a validation for somebody did something bad, they already thought of actively doing something bad. So it's like, you can just by that like marker of how shit worked. So yeah, I was in to get off of giant subjects. I was in off the grid, fucking whatever, and I was walking around fucking somewhere strange. I didn't know where I was at, and they had like a Thai restaurant. And I went in and fucking got some like red curry, fucking whatever. And then fucking good. And this lady was just working there by herself. She fucking made everything, cooked everything, served it. I was the only one in the restaurant. It felt like I had like a Thai mom. It was wild.
Yeah, nice.
It's pretty cool. And then I left, and I had to take a mad shit. Like instantly, that curry hit.
Shocker,
bro. That was wild. Yeah. So I didn't even know. But I'm just walking, and then there's a Books A Million, or whatever. I've never been in one. I've only been in Barnes and Noble. So I was like, oh fuck, all right, let me go in here, see what they got. Go to the history section. I didn't even make it to the history section. I had to go take a shit. They got solid bathrooms. I treated that shit like a Chipotle.
Yeah, right.
And then I went to the that was a nonfiction event, and then I went to the nonfiction section. And look through history, and I'm looking, and there's this dude on the other side, and he's got I think he's got like a little puff vest on, and I'm like already like profiling him, and he answers the phone. He's got like a perfect like white dude voice, like works in the office or something. Oh yeah, honey, I'll be there. I'm just gonna do that. Yeah, I'm just at the store. I'm at the bookstore. I'm just like, this motherfucker, like. Because I'm in a bookstore, so I'm just thinking like it's gonna be types of people that I don't like. And then he went around, and he was in the history aisle too, and we were kind of like passing each other up. And dude, history sections fucking suck. I don't mean pretty much everywhere. Like if you even Barnes and Noble is just huge. Like the history section for Americas is like, oh, by the way, that's Canada and Latin America, and you got like a 8x8, like, fuck, or 8x6, fucking 6 high, 8 wide. So it's like, damn, what the fuck? So I'm looking, and he's looking, and I just sit there and I look at him, and I just broke out the Matrix. I asked him, I was like, what you into, man? What you think? He goes, what do you mean? I was like, what you in a rabbit hole, or like, what's your like subjects? Like, what do you get into? It was World War II. I was like, basic.
Right.
Like that could go either way. Yeah. You know what I mean?
You heard the Shane Gillis joke, and he's like, so I've been reading a lot into World War II, and it's just like, yeah, it's funny. He's just like, yeah, it generally means it's like early onset Republican, essentially. yeah. He's like, there's a really good chance if you're reading into World War II, you might not be right now, but you're probably turning into a Republican.
That's so fucking great, dude. So that's the way this conversation goes is great with that, because like then he was like, this dude said like World War II. I was like, all right, well, like in my head, whatever. And then he was like World War I, and I was like, okay. And he goes, yeah, man, like ancient history. I was like, that's what
this is my forte.
And then he goes, actually, this book right here, and it was like Steel Sword or something like that. Mm-hmm. And it was a World War I book written by a World War I officer, a colonel or something. And he goes, this one right here, I was like, good. He's like, it was like really good. I said, well, that's World War I. He goes, yeah. I was like, that's not part of the religion. He goes, ha, I like how you said that. And then I was like, then I realized what it's like to be gay. Because it was like everything had to be under like very subtle, and I had to turn on my right dar instead of my gaydar. Right. I was like, oh wait, dude, like this isn't part of the religion. He looks at me, he's like, I like how you said that, knowing what I mean by I guess not part of the social fucking national religion. And then Dude, we literally hung out for 5 hours.
No shit, huh?
We went to go get dinner, even though I just ate. He's like, man, you want to get something to eat? I was like, yeah. He's like, get in my car. I was like, this could be bad. Get in his car.
Sure, fuck it. Let's do it.
Where do we go? Chick-fil-A.
Nice.
This is a perfect dude date. Like, it's fucking, like, this is the shit.
You literally had a fucking dinner date with a random stranger at a bookstore?
Dude, it was sick. It was sick. Bro, like, we talked about
You know
so
this
much
dude's
cool
name? Like, you got a first name, at least?
Yeah, I got his number. Like, fucking.
For real?
Yeah, it's legit.
Did you tell him about this podcast?
I did not. Not yet. We're not there yet.
Can we shout him out? At least his first name, you know?
Yo, David.
David.
I know that Sandy Hook was rough for you, but it's going to be okay. And I'm really glad. He's super bummed because his name is literally like one letter off from David Hogg or whatever.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
It's so similar. So yeah. Dude, we were chilling. He's like, oh, the Concrete Podcast? Yeah. And then, like, it was just ticking off the boxes. And then he was like, hold on. Dude, he was showing me books he got. Like, he had so many fucking books of, like, forbidden history shit.
No shit.
Yes. Like,
nice.
Deep. And then he was like, then figured out, like, we're both in Gnostic Christianity. Like, he's like, yeah, I got this book on fucking...
no shit.
Weird, dude. Weird. And then he's like, dude, I never meet you guys in the real life. I was like,
we
dude,
exist, motherfucker.
I was like, we exist. We will not be silenced. We exist.
That's
we're
fucking
real.
Great.
And we're in IRL, dude. We're
That's
IRL.
awesome. That's fucking awesome.
Crazy. Crazy shit.
Can you give me 1 second, man? I gotta go piss right quick.
Hell yeah.
Just give me 1 second.
Yeah, so fucking there's been like moments I've had where I've had a thought and I just go like, it changes my life. Like it's a thought.
Uh-huh.
So I guess they call those epiphanies. But it would changes my worldview just like you, the 9/11, you or whatever subject, you or anybody else when they find out like a piece of information and it just kind of turns it on its head. I had like 1 week last year where I just had all these breakthroughs.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them is something we talk about a lot, like how fiction affects the past, affects the future. It's almost like time travel. Like it's very fucking weird. And I keep getting
like revisionist history.
Kind of like Roosevelt. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. But the thing is like if you believe something, and not to get too deep into this because we talked about this a couple episodes ago, but if you believe in something is the way it is, and basically history is fake.
Yeah.
History is absolutely fake, and history is a religion in the sense that the information you get is moralized and put in a narrative form. And the problem with narrative is it's not bullet points, so there has to be a point to a story.
Right.
And if there has to be a point to a story, it has to be moralized. So,
which means there's got to be a winner and there's got to be a loser.
And if there's a winner and a loser, then the bad guy lost and the good guy won. And then, you know, and you could go, well, is that...
But then we start to realize, like I said, when you really delve into things, it's just like, man, the good guy and the bad guy is not 100% what we were taught.
And the thing is that, you know, even with the good and the bad or whatever, that's not like a crazy observation that like the winners write history, but what it means, and as a mechanic, is crazy. Because like if you tell a story and this is why it happened and you rationalize it as good and bad or this way, then it changes what the past really was and the effect that the past should have had on the present. But the thing is that you can only understand the past the way that you can in this temporal set that in your life and in your existence. So you don't understand that there's nuances in the past or lack of nuances in the past sometimes that don't exist today. So when there's an interpretation of history, what it is just a modern collective internalizing and like digesting the past in a way that makes sense, but that's not the way it happened. And there's entire language references that you're missing or reality points. So what happens is the people in power understand that, and this isn't just like, it could be subtle where they just change the history small piece by small piece in entertainment. And by doing that, the people in the present take the entertainment as history or as if it really happened that way. And then once they do that, then they can create science fiction, which is based on that same morality or worldview or logic and dialectic that then project possible realities if you accept that first thing to be true. So now it becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So it's like if you can say something, if you can do something, create a piece of art that captures the imagination of the present, then you can create a future. So like sci-fi is crazy. Like if you get into sci-fi, it's like, well, why? Like you look at the world we live in today, and even the bad things were talked about in sci-fi, and you could go, well, these people predicted it. It's like, no, they didn't predict it. People were fans of this shit,
Right.
and then the fans did stuff, and then there's fans of those people, and they either consciously or unconsciously then made the bad shit and the good shit. They either did it ironically or did it whatever, and like they cast themselves in a fictional story as a good guy or a bad guy to then materialize something that was fiction in the reality, and that fiction is based on a philosophy on the present which might be entirely flawed.
Right.
See what I'm saying? But if you had both control both ends of the spectrum, like Christopher Nolan, where you can make Tenet at one point,
Right.
and then you can make Oppenheimer the next movie, and then you could tell people how they're supposed to feel about AI through nuclear bombs.
Right. Of course.
And then you could tell people what's going to happen without them realizing, because you predicted the war that hasn't happened, and you predicted the algorithm. That's like, so there's that. And if anybody's interested in that, go look up Hyperstition, Nick Land. We talked about that last podcast, Nick Land. Hyperstition's a good one. And I came across another guy called Grant Morrison. He does comic books. And he did the Invincibles, and like he did it really big on Batman. When the Batman Begins movie came out, he did the Batman comic.
Gotcha.
And he made like $250,000 on the first issue of that series. So it was crazy. And he basically realized like he had a religious experience where aliens talked to him at the top of that place in Nepal, Kathmandu. Kathmandu. Yeah, he was on top of the pyramid, and it came down, and that night aliens talked to him and said that like you can control history, or you can control this, and this is how it works. And he has like a speech on it. So then he made a new comic that explored it. And he was raised, like most people are raised Catholic or Jewish or whatever. He was raised on Aleister Crowley. He was raised on Aleister Crowley, like had his books and shit. So then he knew, quote, magic, and they draw sigils, which is like you take all the there's a lot of ways to do it, so there's no one way. But you take consonants and then you compress it into one icon, and you focus on that icon. Some people jerk off when they look at the icon, like to try to change the primate brain, like internalize it somehow. Like there's all this bullshit. But the thing is like Aleister Crowley is basically taking ancient religions that the Masons are also interested in, and it's all the same religion. It's just some people want to use it for bad, some people want to use it for good. So anyways, he has this idea. Like, okay, well, these aliens or whatever said to do this. I don't necessarily believe them, and I don't necessarily trust myself that this experience happened. So he goes make this comic book, and shit that happens. He makes himself a character in the comic book, and shit that happens to him in the comic book happens to him in real life. He publishes an issue where the guy's sick in bed, and then when that happens, he has to go to hospital and is like about to die because he has a cyst on the behind his ear. And like, there's actually a lot of specific examples, but that's another great thread. So there's two words if you're ever interested in that: hyperstition and hyper sigils. And sigils would work good if you're describing a piece of art that plays with time. And then hyperstition is the effect that has, where the past changes. Philip K. Dick seems to have been what introduced this idea of using the prefix of hyper for something that is like, there's hyperdimensional, but the way that word's used as hyper It's like hyperdimensionals built into that version of the prefix, and he calls it hyperstructures. And hyperstructure, he actually had a vision that he saw himself of past lives, and it was after he published a book that he realized that the book wasn't fiction; it was actually a past life, like where he like recovered this memory after he went to the dentist, and they put him on like some sodium bullshit. So then. Anyway, so he had this like news conference and whatever, and one of the words that he uses is hyperstructure, and he describes hyperstructures as things you can't see that infect or affect the entire world. And he used that as capitalism. He says, think about it. And what's funny is you fast forward to Nick Land, who made art or story concepts that transcended time or play with the concept of time, had this philosophy out of Warwick with the CCRU, the Cybernetic Culture Research Unit. And he was obsessed with this, and his entire shit, and everybody's entire shit, they were all Marxists, was obsessed with capitalism. And the thing was like, bro, where it almost gets conflated that capitalism is AI. Like they believe that we exist in a computer that hasn't been made yet. So then they're like, but some people are like, capitalism is part of the computer, or the computer AI can't be made without capitalism, because
that's true.
Because like it's AI is a logical conclusion of making the cheapest labor, the fastest labor. So it could only be a result of capitalism. So if this future computer exists, is capitalism not an appendage of it reaching back through time, and
it's some part of it at least.
Yeah, I mean, then you would say Darwinism. Well, then Darwin, and then it never ends. But it's just super interesting shit. So there's that. I got into. I don't know what's the fucking other thing. I got into something else. Yeah,
I'm gonna take a little bit of it.
He's getting some of the brew. Nah, that was a good move.
From one Pablo to another, you know, we run on this fine Mexican cerveza over here.
Yeah, get that Rona. We drink Rona, bro. We survived 2020. Now it's
know, man. I mean, look, this podcast would be way less interesting without booze. I'm just saying. So, you know, when we have it, it makes it so much better.
So, other big breakthrough I had was
I wanted to ask you first before you go too far on that.
Yeah.
Just curious, what podcast are you listening to, just for our listeners? Because I like to give a shout out to because I mean, dude, like
the shit with the
because I just want to throw it out there. Like, obviously, dude, this whole thing wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for like the people that really interest us and inspire us to do this.
Yeah, sure.
And like there are just so many podcasts out there, like at least I listen to on a daily basis, that I'm like, man, like these really inspire me to do what we do.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, like what are the ones you listen to?
I definitely listen to Danny Jones, and I listen to Sean Ryan. I don't feel like I talk about their stuff too much, but that's what I listen to.
Yeah, right.
And when I'm not doing that, like the shit I talk about is usually primary sources. Like I'm either listening to the person I'm talking to, or I'm listening to their audiobook or essay they wrote. But it doesn't mean like the podcast doesn't hop me off on something, or I get in it like a. So yeah, lots of concrete Sean Ryan show. Sometimes I tap into Joe Rogan. Usually not. I don't like the people that he has on typically. And I listen to Matt and Shane's Secret Podcast. Okay. And I listen to War Mode. War Mode is the GOAT. I listen to War Mode. Fucking, they're worse at putting fucking EPs out than we are.
I love War Mode, dude. They seem like us.
Yeah, no.
Like those are some dudes that I'm like, bro, we could hang.
Totally.
I like them.
Totally.
I listen to War Mode. I listen to Sean Ryan.
Yeah.
I listen to Joe Rogan. I listen to Jocko Willink.
Okay.
I listen to Danny Jones, Concrete Podcast. It's rebranded, but same thing. I listen to Julian Dory, who's friends with Danny Jones. He's been on a couple. I showed you that one they did with Andrew Bustamante and the other guy. And Julian Dory's pretty dope. I said him and Danny Jones. And then I mean a few like hunting podcasts when there's nothing else to listen to. But like,
dude, you know who's fucking banging?
Oh, and also, and of course, like I said, now since I've listened to this one, dude, Martyr Maid. He was interesting enough for me to listen to 30 hours of Jewish history. Yeah. So I'm like, all right, bro, like you got me. And I know you hate Dan Carlin, but like I like hardcore history. I found Martyr Made. He's very Dan Carlin-esque, so I don't know if you would like him, but he's a little less dramatic than Dan Carlin,
cool,
and a little bit more practical, but still along that same vein. But I mean,
bro, I'll tell you what I do is like once there's a subject that gets me, like tips me off, I'll literally listen to speeches from people.
And I forgot to. And I also every Tuesday I'll listen to Weaponized with George Knapp and fucking UFO guy. God damn it. Corbell.
Yeah, you talked about
dude. Weaponized is I look forward to that fucking podcast so much, dude. It's pretty much just about UFOs, but I fucking love it, dude. Every Tuesday it's I love it. That's like my favorite. I look forward to Tuesdays.
Man, what the fuck? I'm trying to think. It was something I stumbled on recently that was like a long fucking subject. I don't remember. But,
well, especially all this shit that's been going on, like with the UFO subject and everything. Because, dude, what a fucking time to be alive, man. I know we cover this shit like every fucking week, but it's
I'll share a story.
Dude, it's so good.
I'll share a story.
Oh, and and you sent me that one the other day from Danny Jones, the one where he interviewed that guy
David Bledsoe or something.
Yeah, Bledsoe.
Something Bledsoe.
Dude, man, I'm gonna tell you what, bro. That's a fucking wild episode, bro.
So I'm gonna share something. So
okay,
I was hanging out with that dude I met. We were talking about shit, and we were talking about podcasts, and talked about something.
And you didn't tell him about ours, but that's okay.
Well, yeah.
So we can have one more viewer to add to like our 10 viewers out there worldwide.
Yeah.
We do it for you guys every time, bro.
Yeah.
We love you guys.
Hell yeah. And we got exciting shit to reveal.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, don't let's forget about that for me.
So we were talking, and I told him my story, which I've never said on here, when I saw a UFO.
Uh-huh.
So basically, guys, this is a story. I'm 17 or something. I go to school, high school. I guess I'm a sophomore at the time.
Or junior, one of the two. If you're 17.
Yes, I'm junior. Okay. Yeah, I'm junior, and school's about hour and some change away after carpooling and everything. So I got to wake up at like 5 in the morning or some crazy shit. Sleeping. I have an alarm clock. We lost power at some point, so the alarm clock doesn't work, and I just wake up on time, or my mom would come fucking get me, so it didn't matter. And I wake up, and I'm fucking late. How do I know I'm late? Dude, the sun's up, and my fucking room is lit up, dude. Like, I got fucking sunbeams on the floor. So I'm like, damn. And then so I get up and I'm like, fuck, like I'm late. So I rush to the blinds. Since my clock doesn't work, my phone's I had a little flip phone. I hated phones then too. So then
just for information, this motherfucker lives dangerously. In front of me is an iPhone on the table with no case.
That's true, brand new.
This motherfucker
iPhone
lives
14
dangerously as fuck, bro.
Dude.
Just throwing that out there.
That's true. That is true.
This dude has an iPhone with no case and loves to hang out in Colombia. Just throwing that out there.
I don't have a protection plan on it.
Bro, he is like literally raw dogging a hoe with no rubber, bro. No rubber. Raw dogging life with an iPhone with no case. Just throwing that out there.
Nobody's raw dogging life harder than me, dude. Except Hunter Biden. He is raw dog.
Dude, he's raw dogging with no iPhone. He ain't even got an iPhone case, bro. Dude. He ain't even got an iPhone case. He ain't even got an iPhone, bro. He's raw dogging life with like one of them Android flip phones. But
he's raw dogging life like with a Campbell's soup can and a string.
Yeah. He's literally playing telephone with like a Natty Ice can and some fucking yarn, bro.
He's banging Obama's daughter, and she's on the other one. She's on.
Is that actually Obama's daughter?
No, I don't believe so. No.
I mean, bro, you know, Magic Mike, bro. I mean, like.
Magic Mike, call him Magic Mike.
They might be adopted. I don't know, bro. I don't know. There was
Isn't it weird?
Supposedly, there's no pictures of Mike pregnant. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You know what's funny though is like in the bookstore on the same aisle as the history aisle.
Y'all talk about Magic Mike or something with
it came up half a second because once I realized he was chill, and I was like, did you read Becoming? He's like, Becoming is like by Michelle Obama. Like,
Mike? Yeah, I got.
Yeah. What I love is that this is how I know. Like, I can't tell like if it's like trying to kill schizophrenics like me or like what, but like. If people say that you're a tranny and that's a big meme, and then you have a book that says Becoming, and right underneath it is your name as the author, and it says Michelle Obama, so it says Becoming Michelle Obama, meaning that you were something before. You know, like it's like a great joke.
Yeah, that's.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway, wow. So
that's good.
So I think I'm late for school, and fucking the sun's lit up. Well, my room's lit up. So I go to pull the blinds. I had like heavy like wood blinds, and I'm fighting. And I didn't learn until way too late in life that if you pull the blind strings one way, it'll stay up, and if you pull straight down, it won't stay up. So I keep pulling down, it keeps falling. So then I was like, "Fuck this!" And I just picked it up, put it over my head, and I had it resting on my shoulders. And there you go. The sun's there. I'm fucking late.
Right.
But the sun, I'm starting to think about it. I'm like, wait, not where the sun should be. Like, it's 60 feet. So this is what happens. I see it. Slowly, my brain starts turning on. Like, it's not
sunlight.
It's not sunlight. And the sun might be rising, but
it's not.
That's
sunlight.
not the sun. And basically, I'm looking.
Wind chimes.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So
perfect timing.
So I'm looking at it, and my mind, I just start kicking on. Like, wait, that's not the sun. And I'm like, well, what is it? And then once I don't know what it is, I'm like, there's woods. Just to draw a picture. I'm in the second story, and I'm looking out, and there's sparse woods. I mean, this is like a residential neighborhood, so it's not like these are like crazy woods.
What you figure, 50 yards from your house there's woods? Or
it's 125 feet, so whatever that is.
Okay.
Like, I knew that even before this happened. So there was a reason why I would have had to measure it or something, but I didn't know.
It's about 125 feet?
Yeah, so it's 125 feet out. I'm looking at this tree where the tree line starts, and then I am about...
So you're looking at 41.6 yards.
Okay. So it's 41.6 yards out, and then the tree line starts, and the tree that it's behind, it's literally like behind the first row of trees, and it's at the top of the tree.
So maybe 50 yards?
Sure. This is 50 is fine.
Call it 50 yards.
Let's just say 50. And it's behind the tree, and the bottom 1/4 of it is eclipsed by the tree, and the tree, I guess, is like 60 feet high. Like it's like the tallest tree.
Right.
And it's not far away from my trampoline, and I had just cut grass, so the trampoline was out of the way all the way to the back of the property. So it's not far from that. So I used that for scale, and I looked at the light, and I looked at the trampoline, and my trampoline was like 15 feet across, or like it's a 15 feet whatever circumference. And I was like, it's twice as big as that. So I was like
30 feet wide.
So yeah, so this thing's 30 feet wide. Like, I'm doing this live. Like, it's not me. As it was happening, I'm like sizing it up, like just trying to figure out what I'm looking at. And then I look at this thing for like 3 minutes, it feels like, at least. And I look at it, and I go, and it doesn't move. Like, I'm looking at it, and it's not moving.
Is this just like an orb?
It's an orb.
Like a lighted orb? Or lit orb?
It literally looks like the sun. It doesn't hurt to look at. That's a detail that I remember after. Like, why didn't that hurt to look at? So then I look at it and I go, there's definitely the idea that I'm looking at a UFO. Like I'm not looking at something normal. So as I look at it, I have this funny thought.
I'm just curious, is this pre-cell phone?
Like I said, I had a cell phone. It was dead. And this would have been like, I had like the tight. This is 2008, so I mean, you weren't having great
Right.
fucking photos.
Do you know
anyway.
what time this is?
I don't know what time it is because, like I said, my alarm was fucked up from the power going out. I never
Right.
fixed it, and I thought I was late for school. I'm obviously not late for school at this point.
Now, just curious, like I'm gonna
And it's
just
before
asking
5,
questions.
so we know it's
So,
5.
so is this before the actual? Is this right as the sun's coming up, or is this
The
before?
sun has to be coming up slow, like,
Slowly, but
and this is after the time change. This is in May,
okay.
so but not too late in May that I'm still in because I'm still in school.
So we're at about 5:30 a.m. First light, give or take, instead of 6:30.
Because
right
now I'm confused about this because it was
right
it was
now,
the-
right now, in this time before the next time change, right now, sunlight is at about 6:30 a.m. So in the new time change, when it comes, it's going to be about 5:30 a.m. is when sunlight happens.
Holy fuck! Okay,
so
hold on.
if the sun is starting to come up, it's going to be about 5:30. If we're daylight savings time, this is technically normal time right now.
What do you define as?
This is normal
Yeah,
time
I know,
right
I know,
now.
I know.
So
But what do you define as sun coming up? Like,
first light, 5:30 a.m. That's when the sun is first starting to come up. The sun isn't risen until about first light is 30 minutes before actual sunup. So
Okay.
first light means as when the sun is first starting to peak
Okay.
above, and so that would mean 6 a.m. Actual sunup, 5:30 a.m. first light.
Okay,
right
so
now,
I'll say right now that this confuses me.
yeah.
because-
So right now it's 6:30 a.m. is first light, 7 a.m. is actual sunup.
Understood, but recalling the memory makes that confusing because now I really don't know what time it was because
It may have been around 5 if the sun
I
was
think it was around 5.
If the sun was just starting to peak.
Yes.
The first light's technically 5:30, but technically about 5 a.m. you would start to see the hints of like a lit sky, but not any view of the sun.
yeah,
You would just start to see hints of sunlight.
that might make sense. Like I mean, it could have been 5:30 even.
Okay,
It could have been, but
that would have been
we're
first
gonna
light.
get into problems here. So we're gonna
Okay, but I mean, like you said, the source of the light was only 10 yards or so into the tree line.
yeah, I mean, not even like 10 yards off my yard.
Right.
3 yards in the tree line. It's 1 yard.
Oh, okay. So not even. Yeah. Okay.
So it's like, okay, call it 50, but I think it's still shorter than that. Anyway, so I'm looking at it, and then I have this thought. I'm like, I start realizing like this is not the sun. I don't know what it is. I have this like I'm trying to rationalize it. So like maybe they're doing construction in the woods.
Right.
I haven't heard anybody doing construction the days before or whatever. So then I go, I don't know if it's a UFO. And I had this funny thought. I had heard stories of people seeing UFOs and then saying like they hear thoughts come to them or channel thoughts. So I used to not tell this part of the story. And nothing crazy happened, so don't fucking bust a nut. But I looked at it and I gave it a thought. I would like just the idea, like how do you send a thought? I don't know. I still don't know. But I had a thought and I'm really proud of the thought I had, like clutch. But it was there and I had to think about how would I represent myself to an alien in this moment. And my thought was, this is my home. This is where the people I love live.
Mhm.
That's the only thing I thought. And then I felt very calm and I went back to sleep. Walked back to the bed, went back to sleep. And I wake up and I don't know how much longer after that I woke up. So that's where the problem is. It's like I would have had to wake up soon, but I felt like remembering it at least, I felt like I had some time to sleep. I don't tell anybody that day. Maybe not even the next day, but within that week, I go, look, dude, I saw something the other day. Like, and what did it in was I came home from school a day or two later, and 2 black helicopters flew over my house.
Shit.
And there's like a path that's clear. And when they flew, they came in like hot, like right over my house, right on the servitude of my house over this canal. And they were like, their attitude shifted where their nose started going up a little bit, and they were fucking so close to each other, and they were so low. They were lower than the UFO was, lower than 60 feet.
Wow.
Like because a tree line cuts, and there's like a narrow, so they're at 60 feet or lower, and they're actually like attitudes changing, and their noses are up, and they're right side by side in this path, and they're like kind of like slowing down, still has forward motion, but they're just moving across this whatever. So, and eventually they didn't stop. They didn't hover. They just kept going. I was like, that's weird. Whatever. And
just for context too, and I mean, I'm not giving away any information here.
Yeah.
But this is an area that's heavily populated by chemical plants and everything else. So low-flying aircraft is almost strictly prohibited in this area.
Yeah, and there's a nuclear plant.
Yeah, very close.
Like miles. As the bird flies.
Within 5 or 10 miles of this place. Yeah.
So, all right. Like, so then that's the story, right? Then I have the podcast with that dude David Bledsoe, whatever his name is. He just and that kind of got me when I heard his account because he said he thought it was the sun,
right?
And then he saw 2 of them,
right?
And I went, "Fuck!" That's what I've been trying to explain to people, that it's a light, and there's no sense that you can see past it. It seems solid. If you look at a lot of patents, it could explain this with plasma. Like if you look at the go look at the plasma patent for hydromagnetodynamic propulsion or something like that. Figure it out, but you'll see it. It explains like a plasma charge. Anyway, the guy explains something similar. Hanging out with the dude I met. I tell him the story. He goes, "Hey, I saw the same thing." I go, "Yeah." He goes, "I was 9 years old." And I was like, "Okay." And he goes, I was playing with my friend, like the family was together. I was playing with my cousin or a friend or something. He said, in the backyard, and my mom said, "Hey, come see this, come see this." So I walk out, and we all walk out, and there's a light. He goes, "You see that iridescent light, like right there?" And I look, I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, basically yellow, just like a street lamp. He goes, and when I told my story, he said, "Wait, how big?" And I said, 30 feet. And when I clarified, he went, "Oh, wow." Like, so knowing now that he had the same experience, he was having a response, like he was surprised by what I said. So now listen to the story. He walks to the front yard with his family. He had multiple witnesses: his mom, his dad, I believe, his uncle, him, his cousin, maybe a couple other kids that are there that got pulled to the front yard. There's a light just like that. It looks like a street lamp, except it's an orb. You can't look at, like, it's just an orb. You can't see anything. He says it's 3 feet big, and it's hovering off the street by about 3 feet, and it's just sitting there. And he says he hears like a low electric hum. Now this weirds me out, but this weirds me out now. I need to talk to him again, because I have the problem I have with his story is the same problem I have with my story. I said, "Did it ever move?" He said, "No." Okay, so now you're telling me and his story have a problem here. We looked at it and never saw it move, and then we disengaged from it, and then it's gone. Because the thing I left out was after I woke up, I went and looked, and it was gone. Okay, so I actually have more of a problem with his story, because he has multiple people there who were already in the front yard chilling, apparently, then seen it, and then now no one sees the moment it leaves. What happened? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, how do you disengage from it? Because if that's me and I got witnesses, I'm going to walk up and touch it. I'm going, you see what I'm saying? So if somebody heard my story, they go, well, how a lot of people would respond to my story, go, well, why were you so calm?
Right.
And I can't explain that. I actually can't explain that. I felt calm. I was able to rationalize it, and I went back. Well, now, the thing with this podcast,
the Bledsoe,
you want to throw in, because you're starting to see where I'm going with this.
Yeah, so his big thing was, and that he was talking about, is that, I'm sorry.
No, do your thing.
What he was talking about was, there's only so much left. You want to kill it, or?
No, kill it.
What he was talking about was that he thinks that they're kind of connected to your thoughts and emotions and how you're feeling and whatnot.
He says that they come before a bad time.
Now, I will say this, okay? So, and again, I'm not trying to one-up or anything like that, but I'm just, my experience. Like, I've only had one experience, and I don't even think it was a UFO. It was just something. We have there's a main particular boulevard where we live, and on this boulevard there's a whole bunch of, it's a very populated area. Anyway, we have a grocery store towards the end of this boulevard, and attached to this grocery store is an old parking garage. And if you happen to go up to like the second story of this parking garage and go to the very up against this grocery store, you can theoretically jump on top, climb the roof, and go on top of this grocery store and hang out and drink beer as a young kid.
Hell
So
yeah.
anyway, whatever. So me and a couple of my friends, it may have been my little brother and one of my friends, we're up there on top of this roof, and we're just hanging out. Like, we're teenagers. We're just fucking hanging out on top of the roof of this grocery store. And like, we got our back up against the front of the grocery store facade on the roof, and I'm looking into the city, and there's like a couple like little high-rise apartment buildings and like not skyscrapers but just big office buildings in the surrounding area. And I'm looking off, and about 30 yards away, and again, like, dude, I'm not bullshitting you unless I was just fucking seeing shit, but like about 30 yards away, an electric charge appears.
What's that look like?
Like ball lightning.
Okay.
Is maybe 1.5 feet, 2 feet wide.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a blue electric lightning about 30 feet away from me, appeared out of nowhere, and it floated 6 feet.
Mm-hmm.
It appeared out of nowhere, just a ball of electric charge, and it floated up and away from me about 6 feet and disappeared.
What the fuck? The moment. Okay, so
Dude,
as it disappears, what's that look like?
It looked like,
What's the motion as it
it's dark.
disappears?
It's dark sky. Like
Okay,
I
so
said,
it's
like
dark,
I said,
yeah.
it's nighttime. I'm looking just at this high rise building about maybe a mile or so away.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, and maybe 30 yards away from me. Again, this is in the air.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't on top of the roof. This is maybe 20, 30 feet above the roof at most, and 30 yards away from me. So up about 30 feet and then 30 yards away from me.
Yeah.
It appears out of nowhere. When I say appears out of nowhere, like literally imagine a ball of lightning just goes,
Yeah.
and then disappears.
Dude.
It goes bright and then less bright and disappears. It only moves about 6 feet and it disappears.
So the same way it
Dude,
came, it went, but reverse. Like,
I honestly
so it grew out and then faded in.
It started as very dim and it got super bright and then it went very dim. And this all lasted about 1.5 seconds.
Dude, that's because I'll fuck with you.
Bro. So I look at my little brother and I look at my buddy and I'm like, am I the only person who just fucking saw this? Like, because it was off to my left.
Yeah.
And they were both talking to each other bullshit, dude. And I was just looking off and it just 1.5 seconds gone.
Yo.
And I look at him and I look at my little brother and I'm just like, y'all just fucking see that? And I'm like, what?
Oh,
Bro.
no, dude.
Bro, I've gone, this was probably 15 years ago. 15 years I've wondered if I just saw something, like, or if I was just imagining something. It was as real as anything you've ever seen.
To give you some, what felt really good about talking with this dude is after I told my story, he goes, for the longest time, I just told him, like, I wouldn't, he said for the longest time, I wouldn't allow myself to believe it. He goes, I just was like, well, it's something else,
Right.
And like, even when he started to tell a story, he's like, oh, maybe ball lightning. I was like, dude, no, like, ball lightning's not going to sit 3 fucking feet off the fucking ground.
It really could, though. Honestly, dude, it looked like lightning. Like, it looked
well,
like
for him, it's if it sits 3 feet
like,
off the ground.
Have you ever seen like video of like a Tesla coil?
Yeah.
Like a real Tesla coil.
Yeah.
Imagine a Tesla coil, but no Tesla coil. Like the starting point of lightning from a Tesla coil, that big bright flash. Just that, this big around, maybe 2 feet, 2 feet wide. Just it grows from nothing.
Yeah.
And just streaked 6
Well,
feet.
with his thing though, it sits there and just chills.
And again, like I don't want to go too far into this because like dude, I could do a whole episode on
yeah,
this shit.
we probably
but
should.
like, you know, just would it like an actual UFO, what it would look like if you were by it, or just like the electromagnetic field moving around it, would it appear as a solid object or an orb, or would it appear as electricity or something else? Like it really just depends like which way, if the light was bending around it or if it was, I mean, dude, there's so many possibilities of like what it could be, what it could look like, and again, like I'm not saying I saw a UFO, but I saw something, and it was the most wildest shit I've ever seen in my entire life.
So the thing about it though is the thing that you're expressing is something that I've expressed, is something that he expressed. For the longest time, I would just rationalize it.
Yeah, maybe I just saw a ball of lightning.
But the thing is that you rationalize to the point that it didn't happen.
I question whether or not it actually happened.
But that's the step that you can get to. You wonder how many people this really happens to.
Yeah, because you're like, did I imagine this or did I actually see it? It's so unreal.
Okay, so if you remember when we got here, the thing you were saying, like, oh, it's connected to your thoughts. Do you remember something he said?
Yeah, he was saying it was like it came right before
bad shit happens.
Yeah, right before bad shit happened, or right as bad shit was happening. Like as it was, like it connected.
Do you find that to be true for you?
What year would this have been? This would have been like 2008.
Okay.
2007.
We're looking at the same time that we saw our shits, by the way.
Yeah, right.
I
necessarily can't say that it came with anything bad, other than like, maybe I went to jail, but like, yeah, and that was for some dumb shit.
So you want to hear the irony with mine? So my thought was, as I said, this is my home. That's where the people I love live. Parents got divorced. Right. We're literally talking the next year. So that's May. So technically the same year it started.
If anything, dude, my emotions would have been happy and excited because it was just a good time.
Yeah.
We were just up there with my brother and my friend, and we were just having a fucking good old time. Just hanging out on top of this fucking grocery store where we weren't supposed to be.
Hell yeah.
Of course. Just doing kid things, and it just fucking appeared. And it was, like I said, just the most wildest thing you've ever seen, dude. Just so unreal. Like I said, enough to where I question whether or not I actually saw it. What fucking
sucks about your experience is that it's quick.
But I'm almost so sure that I actually did see it, because like you that's not something you just imagine.
Yeah.
Like you don't just imagine fucking lightning appearing out of nowhere and streaking, 6 feet and just disappearing. Like it was the most and again, like I'm not saying this is what I actually, but like it's almost like it was interdimensional. It was like a crossover. Like it was just something that was
fades
happening.
In and fades out.
It was something that happened in another place, and it just happened to fade in where I saw it just for a second, and then disappeared. It was the wildest thing ever. Never seen anything like that in my life.
The other thing about this guy's story was, and maybe one day we'll have him on and talk about it. In fact, I have somebody in my mind that I want to have on and tell a story. It's not about UFOs. It's actually...
If only our boy was still alive, bro. If only our boy was still alive, bro.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that would have been fucking awesome.
God, he would be so good to have on here.
Fuck. Actually, we got living friends of his. Yeah.
That know his stories.
They know some of his stories that go back to old Popeye.
We can kind of tell some of his, not on this episode, but
we're gonna get into this.
But we could tell some of his stories since he's not alive anymore. I mean, fucking, we can.
Yeah.
I miss that dude a lot, man. I really like. I only got to talk to him a few times, and it's just like, fuck, man. Like I think about him all the time. That would have been a crazy guess.
God. I mean.
Bro, he would have set this whole motherfucker on fire with some of the stories.
Yo, there's one story that his wife, like he could tell me.
Who's also gone, by the way.
Yes. Yep. Rest in peace. I had a crazy thought. Can I tell you what this crazy thought was? By the way, let me tell you the real quick thing about this guy's story.
Sure.
He says he doesn't know. He needs to talk to his uncle. But you got to think about
clarify what he saw.
His uncle saw more than everybody else saw.
Okay,
His uncle said he saw it come out of the sink when he was in the bathroom. That it came out of the sink and moved through the house, and he followed it through the house.
Like an orb?
Yes, the orb that then hovered on over the street.
Huh.
So
that's some skinwalker shit, but yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying. Yeah. So there's more.
Bro, these things exist. There's something.
There's something, and I need to have somebody on who's had an experience in Colombia, by the way, and it wasn't a light, but it's something that has this thing that nature that plays with space in such a fucked up way, and I would like them to tell the story. And I've confirmed the story with at least seven witnesses of the same event, and they've all described the same thing. So I don't know what to do.
I've had a past girlfriend who saw one in Thailand when she went there for a vacation.
No shit.
Her and her friend saw it hovering above a mountain and fucking move. Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah. So I'm just these things are out there. They're fucking. I don't know what they are, but they're out there.
Yeah.
It's a fucking wild thing. But before we get too far in this, because we're about to end this, we're going actually a little longer than we normally do, which is good for you guys. But we do want to talk about some really fucking exciting shit.
Dude,
we're gonna do with this.
Maybe we should start a page.
Really should.
And then throw the Jew history on that.
Couldn't hurt.
Cause you know what I'm saying? Because it's kind of touchy, but then it's like that was super informative, and it was an hour of that.
But it involves a lot more than that. Like there's so much stuff I left.
I know, but it was a solid hour.
You realize to talk that fucking long?
Nah, but it was like it was like a great information. Like you condense 6 hours however
30 hours into like
hours
an hour.
into one, so that's pretty fucking dope.
And I'm sure I missed a lot and fucked up something, but you know.
So all the time that we lost is not all lost. We got other episodes and the thing. You're going to see those before you see this. But what you're going to also see changing is our aesthetic. Look, we've made it to the 10 episode mark.
Is this our 10th episode?
The one we're uploading next is the 10th.
Okay, so this is 11.
This is 12.
This is 12.
This is 12.
Oh, shit. Okay.
So my thing was, if we get to 10, then I know we're going to keep going. And we're going to be building out the metaverse. We have metaverse property. We're waiting on the developers to figure this shit out. Operates on Unreal Engine. We're going to have fun stuff with there, but that's going to take some time. But look, this is a real project that we're putting shit into. So you're going to see aesthetic start to change. We're going to make a Pablo-verse comic. Don't expect tons of issues, but we're going to explain how Pablo-verse comes to be, how we got put into the simulation, how we became what we are, and explore big concepts, big themes. So you're gonna see that thumbnails they look fucking badass,
dude.
They look fucking
these
awesome,
dude. Jesus Christ,
I'm excited about this a lot.
We really are planning to take this shit past just. I mean, like obviously, like we're doing this as often as we can when we can, but like hopefully in the future we're gonna have more of this, more individual content if we can to bridge the gaps.
In a year from now, like this is gonna be so flushed out. And we're going to have some people going through our content, making clips and fucking pushing it. And like right now, what we're doing is
we may even try and have some guests if we can.
We should definitely start having guests already. The other thing that we got going on is we're looking to start a YouTube stream, like where it's like constant all the time. You've seen them. And basically we're also creating a new genre of music, Pablo Wave. So we're looking forward to that. It's just going to play on the radio station. We're looking at integrating more Pablos into the AI consciousness in the metaverse and pumping out more
out there, you know.
Yeah, and pumping out more content. And what Pablo-verse does for you guys is eventually it's going to be a bigger platform. And then also it gives you anonymity, and we can work together and keep fucking pushing shit out. So that's really it. We're gonna have AI constructs of people on the show as well, so that's gonna be fun. I think we're gonna have Wanye on, Wanye Yaskobar, or Yasko. Is it artist formerly known as
Wanye? Yaskobar.
Artist formerly known as Wanye Yasko. So looking forward to all this.
Yeah,
shit.
I think it's gonna be super fun, man. We got a bunch of exciting shit coming on that's gonna eventually hit it, and like I said we're eventually gonna become like more predictable with the episodes and when we can release them. It's just, I mean, we're only two Pablos in a fucking metaverse trying to
Yeah.
do all this shit, and even though our supercomputer powers are great, they're only so much.
Yeah.
You know, there's only so much you can do to put out such extravagant content like we do. You know, I mean, it's a lot of AI computing power to make this happen.
Yeah,
you
we
know?
can't run on Internet Explorer anymore. So
Yeah, bro. I mean, like, we got to be fucking Google Chrome at the very least. You know, something.
fuck, dude.
I mean,
Give me
we're
that chromium.
Chromium.
Give me that chromium. Hoes give me domium.
Fuck yeah.
Hey, yeah. Peace out.
Yeah. All right, guys. Y'all have a good one.